And what about universal basic income? Andrew Yang, the presidential candidate, briefly was talking about it. You know, over here in the UK, the government is guaranteed 80% of wages. And people are saying this is just a way going down this universal basic income thing, which also means you're going to have to behave according to what the government says. But that's another issue. Speak on that, Peter.
Yeah, it's a bad idea, but the question is it a worse idea than what we already have, right? Because right now we have all these needs-based welfare programs. And there's a lot of problems with those in that people are incentivized not to work because if they work, they lose all their government benefits, which is like a tax. And if you think about that, if you go from welfare to work, not only do you have to pay taxes on the money that you earn, but you lose 100% of the benefits you got for nothing. So in many cases, the highest marginal tax rate there is to go from welfare to employment. And so that is a big barrier. It discourages people from seeking employment because they give up so much. It's not worth it. Because if you get paid to not work, right, that you have a lot of leisure. There's a value to that. You know, if you have to give up all that leisure in order to commute to a job every day, that's a big sacrifice. So jobs have to be far more lucrative than leisure, right? Because even if the money is equal, if I can make the same amount of money working as I make not working, who's going to choose working? I mean, it's much better not to work. So the current welfare systems that we have discourage people who might otherwise be productive and work. We encourage them to sit back and live off the productivity of everybody else. So society is made poor. The idea behind universal basic income would be, hey, let's give everybody a certain amount of money, regardless of whether they work or not. So it's no longer a negative factor, right, to work. It doesn't discourage you because if you don't lose your benefits by getting a job, well, then maybe more people will take a job. There's arguments to be made there. And there's also probably less fraud because if everybody gets the money, then you don't have to lie to qualify for it. And I think there's a lot of fraud in welfare systems where people just, commit fraud to qualify for these benefits. And now you have to have government bureaucrats who are trying to ferret out the fraud and determining whether people are getting the benefits if they're really entitled to them. And if everybody gets the benefit, regardless of their employment status or their income, then you don't have fraud and you don't have to waste all the resources trying to ferret out the fraud. So you can make an argument that universal basic income is less bad. Now, what Yang wanted to do was the worst of both worlds. He didn't want to get rid of welfare. He just wanted to add the UBI on top of the welfare. I mean, so that made no sense whatsoever. And the other thing that you have to do if you're going to have universal basic income is you have to get rid of the minimum wage. I mean, that is one of the best selling points of UBI is because now you don't need the minimum wage anymore because people are already getting that cushion from the government. And that is, again, probably the best part because the minimum wage makes it illegal for a lot of low-skilled people to get jobs. And it puts the onus of supporting them maybe on an employer. But if you have society providing the universal basic income, then people can take whatever jobs their labor would qualify them for. So you can work for $2 an hour, $3 an hour, $4 an hour, because all of that simply adds to the basic income that you already have. And once you let people get their foot on the job ladder and they can start acquiring skills, well, then they may be able to earn $20 an hour or $50 an hour. But a lot of these people that could have eventually earned $20 or $50 an hour never earn anything because the minimum wage at maybe $8 or $10 prevents them from ever getting their first job. And so if they can't get their first job, they can't climb the ladder. They can't acquire the higher skills that would enable them to earn a lot more than the minimum wage because the minimum wage is a barrier to entry. And so at least with UBI, if you eliminate the minimum wage, you make it easier for people to get jobs and to acquire skills and to earn a lot more than the minimum wage. The negative part about the UBI is you will have a group of people who will be so lazy that they will just say, you know what, UBI is all I need. Who needs to work? My lifestyle is such, I'm just going to live off of this UBI, right? And obviously, the higher you make it, the more people who are just going to decide that leisure is so important to them, they don't want to work. And as long as you take care of their basic needs, if they're going to eat, if they're going to be clothed, if they're going to have a place to live, I don't need anything else, right? I'm just going to take the UBI and I'm going to milk it for all I can. So that's a problem. But again, I don't like the whole concept that people should get something for nothing, by holding taxpayers hostage at gunpoint. I think that people need to fend for themselves. They need to rely on themselves. And if they can't, for whatever reason, if they simply cannot earn enough money to feed themselves or to clothe themselves, then they can turn to private charities for that help. And I do think that human beings are basically good, and they will voluntarily help out people who are truly in need. And so I think that the private sector will be much more efficient at distributing charity to the people who actually need it than the government. I mean, the government perpetuates poverty, they trap people in poverty, and money gets distributed to people who don't need it, and it's very inefficient.